All right. Welcome. Looks like we have zero viewers at the moment, so that's fine. I know we've had a bunch of people waiting. So we'll start with introductions. I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. Many of you know me. I probably made more videos than anybody else on YouTube, including HUD itself. So a lot of people know who I am. I assist people around the country by consulting with them to help them get housing choice vouchers, among many other types of vouchers. I do work in nearly every state. I've worked with hundreds of developers. And so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the different types of housing. And we're going to address some of the issues going on with the pandemic right now because a lot of people are unaware what they can do as far as Section 8 is concerned, if you call it that. And then those of you that are trying to do or deal with subsidy housing, affordable housing, and a continuum of care or coordinated entry. So we're talking about 4 or 5 different types of housing right now. And there's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of money flooding the market, and a lot of housing authorities are receiving millions, to be able to assist those that are struggling to pay rent, those that are looking for housing, and those that have recently become homeless. So before we get kicked off, next week I will be making a video on Tuesday night. That will be around 5:15 Central Standard Time, Texas. So I don't know where most of you are in the country, but that's typically when you're going to catch me on these live videos. They last between an hour to hour and a half, depending on how much I feel like talking. And with that being said, we're going to move on. So one thing I'd like to address right now is going to be Hurricane Ida that hit Louisiana, Texas. There's a lot of you guys living in mold and things of that nature. FEMA's involved, and you could possibly elude eviction if you're facing that in those states. However, I've never seen HUD defer to 211, and we've all talked about that idiots at 211. You call the 211 and you don't get anything. It's like calling a hotline to hell. Um, so I don't suggest that for those of you that are in emergency situations. It looks like we got a few comments. I'm going to try to address those real quick. This video is going to be about answering questions. Many of you have them. Some are going to have complex questions. Some are going to have simple, and I'm going to do my best to answer those questions. Please don't ask too complicated of a question because it takes too much time and something that just cannot do inside of a chat window. For those that are unaware, there is a chat window. I don't know how that displays on your phone, but if you're on a laptop, desktop, or tablet, you may be able to chat in that chat window if you can see it. If not, then you'll just have to listen along. Glenn Johnson commented in the chat window. I'm calling from Vancouver Housing Authority. Hi, Glenn. Glad to have you on the channel. Victoria Jasmine, she's my loyalist. She's always in every chat that I can think of. And so welcome to the channel today. So it looks like, Glenn, you called the Vancouver Housing Authority, better known as Section 8, Vancouver, Washington. They're only helping the homeless. I'm autistic is their housing program. So let's talk about some things that some of you might find slightly offensive, okay? So we've talked extensively about housing authorities, and housing authorities address things in the same way that courts do. It's the truth, but it's never the whole truth. I had a lady call I consulted with, and the housing authority told her if her house didn't burn down, that there was not going to be a voucher for her, okay? So you see, that's just bullshit, right? Thing about it is, guys, if you're going to call the housing authority, they're always going to give some circumstantial answers to why they're not giving out vouchers, and it achieves the result that they're looking for. You hang up, you give up, and you're generally just not going to call back because you believe these people. Now, I'm not suggesting that the housing authority is dishonest, or am I? But let's face this head on. They have to have a lot of different preferences. It is required by HUD in DC. It's required under federal regulation. They cannot just say, oh, by the way, we're only dealing with the homeless. So yes, Glenn, there are a number of programs. It just means that they're not willing to talk about it on the phone with you, and they're trying to make it seem as if that's the only thing they're going to consider. Never fall in that trap. That is one of the major things that a lot of these housing authorities do. They have meetings in their offices, and they figure out clever ways to say things on the phone to lead you into believing that that's the only thing they would consider. When in fact, if you actually got past the bullshit conversation they're going to give you on that phone, got to the application, you would see that there were a number of preferences you could have actually gotten for that. For instance, Glenn, you're talking about autism. There's a number of programs that work with that. Okay, that's a developmental delay. And so let me tell you something, they're not going to consider homeless over somebody that's autistic and vice versa. That's a disability. And that is one of the primary primers for any consideration or preference, special use. So I would say that, going back and looking at that again to see whether or not you can just get the application and not concern yourself with what they're actually trying to tell you on the phone. Phone's never a good piece of evidence. I'd say just call, hey, look, I'm applying. It doesn't, regardless of what you're trying to give away, I just want the application. We'll figure it out from there. Because applications through housing authorities or pre-assessments, so it's a process of elimination. They want to see about the different preferences you may be able to apply for, and whether or not you meet the local preference, living zip code or county, and or if you are low income or extreme low income, and then of course some of the other preferential things that are specific to that county. Mouthful, right? All right, moving on from that. Again, guys, if you have questions about Section 8, subsidized housing, and so on, now's the time to ask. That's specifically what I'm here for. So I've got another list of things I'm going to talk about while you'll figure out what you would like to ask or whether you want to ask at all. So going back to FEMA's guidance for those that have struggled through forest fires in California and other issues in upstate New York, there is some ways to block eviction if you're facing that. Also, they are pouring a lot of money into homelessness right now. So a lot of housing authorities maybe make it seem like the only people they want to address are homeless. What they're saying is they're ready to spend that money first. It doesn't mean that they've forgotten everybody else. It just means that the president currently has poured billions into this. And right now, the biggest chunk of money that is available is for people that are about to be homeless, that are, in fact, just recently homeless or have been homeless all along. But don't let that be the only truth that you hear out of these housing authorities, because that's just part of it. They still consider everything else. So I'm going to answer a few more questions real quick. Kelly, in your last video, you mentioned something about housing for domestic violence. Yes. So VAWA is something you want to type into your Google or whatever search browser you use. And VAWA is Domestic Violence Against Women. That is a federal program that helps people with domestic violence. If your DV case, and we're going to just call it D and V for now, okay, because YouTube is very funny about using the word violence, okay, so I don't like saying it too much. So if that case somehow were to end up through a district attorney's office or under indictment or other issues through a court, there is a special premise in which they could grant an emergency housing voucher. I spoke with a lady today. She got one of the most mythical unicorns of them all, and that's when the when the district attorney's office or the Department of Justice or other county employees that are in the prosecution level are able to make a simple call to the housing authority, compel them to give that person a voucher, and it turns into being the mythical unicorn I'm always talking about, and that is an emergency housing choice voucher with special preference. In other words, you get that sucker in 7 days flat, regardless if people have been waiting 90 years. So I do, as of this point, I know of 7 people. 6 are my clients. Today, the lady that called me was not my client. She received it on her own steam. They do exist. I'm not suggesting anybody go out there and have a battle with your husband, boyfriends, or girlfriends in order to make this happen. You'd have to understand that also it is something that is considered at that level, and they don't grant it to everybody who's been through domestic violence. Okay. Now, looks like we got another question. I'm gonna try to answer. Susan Ewing, Robbie's and Mommy. So that's a pretty long name. She says, "Hi, I currently have a voucher and have been looking for an apartment. I was hoping there is a way to find help with the security deposit. I've received Social Security and I don't have 1,600 saved up. It is an absolute responsibility of housing authorities sometimes to pick that bill up and help you with that, but usually that falls under the guidance of Housing First and COC programs or continuum of care. You have to directly confront your housing authority specialist and say, look, I need the money in order to be able to pay the deposit. A lot of you guys don't understand that these housing authorities are not going to put out a beautiful menu with every steak and ribeye they offer. Otherwise, people would walk in and it's at like one of everything. So you're going to have to address that directly with them. If you can't get it there, then you'll have to step it down to nonprofits and charities. But there are lots of people currently at this time that could pick up that bill for you in part or in whole. I would start with the housing authority and work your way down with that. Miss Deborah, welcome back. Good to see you again. She's been in and out of live chats quite frequently lately, so it's good seeing you. And she says that yes, that's how I got my voucher. So there's a confirmation about the domestic violence and getting a voucher. So that is another person. I won't say whether that person was a client of mine or not because I'm not going to disclose that, but she's right. Lynn Haynes comments that, can I be turned down for a Section 8 list? I believe that's what that is, because I no longer reside in a certain area. Let's talk about housing authorities and you living in that county and then talking about living in that state. Now, I watch a lot of you guys, you give up too easy. Way too easy. So I'm not suggesting in that question I'm not suggesting in that way, but I'm just saying that I'm thinking about all these cases out here. Look, you have to be clever, just like an attorney is when he prosecutes something that's criminal. He's always looking for loopholes. The better the attorney, the bigger the loopholes he knows how to recognize. Here's the deal. In order to be a resident of the state, it would literally require you to show up with your wagon, drive across the state line, walk into a DMV. Here's my social security card. Here is my birth certificate. And I just went down to First National Bank. I opened a $10 checking account. Now, congratulations, you are now a resident of the state of Florida. If you open the checking account in the state of Florida, but yet also in the county of Orlando, congratulations, you just became a resident of that county within 15 minutes. The Department of Motor Vehicle issues you a piece of paper. Some states, like Louisiana, will issue an ID instantly. Print it out. You've got it. Other states like Texas may take 2 weeks to mail it, but they give you evidence then and there that you have applied for the ID, and that's all you need to do to prove your identity. So think about that in a more clever way, guys. When people apply at 19 different housing authorities in 19 different states, what do you think they're doing at the very last minute? They're going down there, at least the smart ones, the ones that I deal with, the ones that I consult with, you go get a fucking ID, seriously. That's it. There's no way for them to determine off that ID alone. They don't have access to the Department of Motor Vehicles. They don't know how long you've had that ID. They don't know that you haven't been living in the county. The only thing they know is that ID says that you're a member of that county, that you're living in that state, and you managed to achieve all of that by crossing the state line or crossing the county line. So, guys, look, you guys out there, oh, well, I can only apply where I am. Everybody else says no. Well, you're wrong. You're just not willing to put in the extra 2 inches of effort in order to do this. A lot of you are not thinking that way. You got to think out the box, guys. I got a lot of clients, man, they don't care. They'll ride to 7 different states and get IDs. They'll wait till the last minute. Okay, well, you're about to give me a voucher. Well, I'm so sorry I didn't have the paperwork available. Give me 15 minutes and I'll be right over the state line. Of course, they're not telling the housing authority that. But you see the point? You can become a resident anywhere at any time. You're an American, right? So I think that adequately addresses that. Nick Jenkins, how are you doing? How often can you call the housing authority? Well, the first time you call, it's somewhat okay. Second time you call, you're an annoyance to them. The third time, you're harassing them. The fourth time, they're sick of you. The fifth time, they probably already started deleting part of your file and then giving you the lowest recommendation. Look, these people, they get thousands of calls. They get thousands of mentally ill people calling, paranoid, schizophrenics, people that have just finished a 20-year run on crack and other issues. And then you just got people that are neurotic. In addition to that, the housing authority employee is not what you would imagine either. A lot of these people had just got their GED out the bubblegum machine and they're barely making $3 an hour. And so my recommendation with a lot of housing authority and the different personalities, attitudes, condescending people you're going to deal with at a housing authority is stay concise in your questions. know exactly what you want to ask. They don't give a shit about your life story. And I'm not saying that in a rude way, but I'm just being real. If you go into your life story and you hold that woman hostage on the phone, it's going to go very badly for you. So my point is, you'd want to stick strict to the point. Don't give out too much information. That way, she's not going to remember you next time you call. Why would you want that? Because that means it's an additional time you can call without getting attitude from that lady. How often does that happen? It happens good enough to where over 20 years, 50 states, close to 8 or 9,000 clients, I know I can probably count my hands and toes how many housing authorities don't have people that don't work with an attitude. Okay. Ask anybody that's a member of this channel, more than 12,000, and you'll see the same repetitive story over and over and over. I thought she was a crack whore on 3rd Street. Now she's working at the housing authority. These people have a lot of attitude, so don't ever try to engage with them. Okay. So why do I talk about the housing authority with such intensity and things like that? Because I really can't stand the bastards. Why would you pick a job that you obviously hate, and then you try to bias people that simply want housing? I don't understand it. If you hate yourself in your life, don't go work at the housing authority. Go do something else. Go hand out bologna sandwiches to the homeless. There's lots of ways to use your energy other than being an asshole every time you have to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that needs a voucher. I'll never truly understand that. So now that I've been on that tear and I've got a taste of just how I talk, for those of you who are new, I tend to be a very real person. I'm going to tell you just the way that I see it, that I hear it, that I feel it, and with the same intensity with my own clients. So let's answer some more questions. Sam and Joe, yes, swearing. Yes, I swear to swear. Some days I'm good and Christian. Some days I'm bad. I really don't worry about it on YouTube. I just think that I'm gonna speak in a manner that I can address anybody, and so it may not be delightful for those of you that are seniors, but oh well. That's the thing. You're here for real answers. Ms. Deborah, so Google new built aerospace apartment. They take a voucher. New properties being built. Yes. Right now, the U.S. is going through revitalization. They're building big time. They've received trillions of dollars, and they're building in a lot of cities. But the thing is, a lot of the stuff that they're building for everybody to be low income, you're not going to really see a lot of that stuff finished for at least a year, possibly 3 years. And I wouldn't be surprised a lot of people who receive these federal funds to help the low income will charge an astronomical rate. That way, they don't actually have to give these nice, pretty buildings to anybody that's low income. Do not be shocked when you see this shit go sideways. And I'm already starting to see it, that they're giving out federal funds. They're taking the federal funds, but then they're requiring you to have a 900 credit score, and they would like for you to make a minimum of 90,000 a year to move in, and they'll gladly accept your voucher. Never. Now, I'm not suggesting that plays out everywhere, but there are already areas of the country where these developers are already just as crooked as the day is long. So it takes time and effort, like anything else, but I believe that a lot of properties will be available. I think a lot more are going to be a problem, and some of them are going to get sued. Lady Leo, hello, Jay in chat. Good to see you, Miss Lady Leo. Kelly Babe, thank you for the information. I've learned so much from your videos. I appreciate it. A lot of people come to the channel, and I hear one common theme is when you watch one video and you finally learn about me and this channel, a lot of people stay up for several days watching a whole lot of videos because I put a lot of content in this. I'm definitely not talking about tips and tricks, how to drive and get a voucher in three steps. That's when you know that the personality teaching you on YouTube is an idiot. And do you know anything in life that takes 3 steps? Or you go into their YouTube channel, and one day they are an expert at Wall Street. Today they're a Section 8 consultant, and tomorrow they're an expert at fidget spinners. You see you see the issue with idiots? They don't do what I do. I know that I'm ranked #1 in the nation. You can Google me anywhere. Period. I don't have competition. Next to HUD, there's me. That's it. And I stand behind it. On YouTube, same way. There is nobody better at what I do on YouTube, so I don't worry. Not after 20 years. All right, let's get back to some more questions, guys. George, welcome to the channel. I fell in May, and I could not walk for 9 weeks. I'm sorry to hear that. Trolls call CCHA demanded that they evict me because the apartment was not cleaned up. The 3 of us cleaned much, and the manager refuses to see the cleaning and keep. That's not a violation of HAP contract. So unless you are actually doing a mess outside the apartment, it's none of their fucking business. Okay. Now, If you do approach the point where you're hoarding in the home, you're going to need to reduce the number of things you have in the home to bring it a safe level. If you start violating city and county fire and other rules, that could be an issue. But as it stands, just having a trashy house is not going to be sufficient for an eviction. And then, of course, they would need to keep a file of notices where they have to prove that you received those notices, that you have been warned, and you repeatedly offended. I don't think they have that kind of record. So my thing is, George, all interactions at this point, you need to cut off contact with them. And every time something comes up, don't do anything by phone. It should always be by mail. If they're going to talk, then turn on the recorder. Invite them in, because under federal law, you can record anybody's voice or who they are in person in your own doorwell. You may not be able to record them in your front lawn, but you want to keep the matter of record for this and let a judge decide. Look, being messy is not an excuse to evict somebody. So we're going to move on to the next one. Stephanie Conrad, we make $2,100 together on Social Security. Okay. So you want to divide. So I see what you're saying. I think that question is geared towards, am I going to be low income enough? Well, I don't know where you live, Stephanie. That's the problem. $2,100 would be a lot in Texas, possibly, and that would be nothing in New York. So it's going to be contingent on the state, the city, first of all. Dividing that number down like that between two individuals at 1,000, I would say that you're in the range of extreme low income. It isn't until you two guys actually exceed around $46,000 in most states and counties that you would even start getting in an area where you would not get preference for extreme low income. Just now, I'm taking a wild guess on that. Ms. Deborah says Pittsburgh, really, really easy to get a voucher. Now, I think, Ms. Deborah, that I think you're pulling my leg on that, because I don't know anything easy on that East Coast, okay? Whether it's Philly, Boston, whatever. So I know you've got to be talking a little smack in that comment section. All right. Let's take a look. Christy Phillips. Did you skip over my question? Well, Christy, I try not to skip people, because people get upset when you do that. It's just like when you're in grade school and somebody cuts the line, and then a kid gets a black eye over a cheese sandwich, cutting that line. Now, sometimes, Kelly, sometimes I don't see questions because people ask a lot. So I'll look out for your next one. But let's see what else you said. I really need your advice, please. So you just want to shoot me another message in there at the bottom there. Christy Phillips, and I'll try to address it again. It's too late to go back. Ms. Deborah says, if you're a vet, it might be easy right now to get a voucher. Not necessarily. So veterans go under HUD-VASH. You would have a HUD-VASH representative. You would need a referral from the VA. And true that the federal government does back up HUD-VASH, but I got to tell you, that is not a prize system of vouchers there, that HUD-VASH. If you've ever been to a HUD-VASH property with nothing but veterans, a lot of those places are, I don't want to dishonor our veterans, but some veterans do have a lot of drug and drinking problems, and those properties tend to be a little bit more climatic than even hood projects, okay? So even if you manage to get one as a veteran, I would be concerned for your safety if you went into apartment complex. Is HUD-VASH suitable for individual landlords and separate properties? Absolutely. Would I move into a HUD-VASH property where there's a bunch of veterans that are possibly dealing with a number of issues? No, because I've seen that play out before, and it usually ends very badly. Oh, by the way, HUD-VASH, being a veteran does give you a strong prioritization, but what's stronger than that is actually not being a veteran. The strongest priorities you can get is, number one, being a domestic violence victim. Number two would be having a qualified disability, and number three would be homelessness. Second to that would be in the same range as being a veteran, okay? Sammy Joe, like the live, y'all. I like it too, man. I've been tired today. I didn't really want to make this video, but I said, there's a lot of people waiting with questions. So I was struggling today. It's been hard. As many of you know, I own the Houston Rock Shop, which deals with rocks, minerals, and gems. And so I now have 2 YouTube channels, 2 websites, and 2 different things going on. What's really intense right now is the fact that I'm trying to develop this other website for my company. in this other channel, and thus it sucks up all my time. It's like I spend all year thinking of ways to work 18 hours a day. That's what I do, you know? So, anyways, that being said, I'll get back to the Section 8 part of this. Sandy March, it's been a minute. I have 2 questions. Can you please read them? You wrote red. All right. Well, I don't actually see, Sandy, where you asked the 2 questions. I'm looking up about 10 lines there, and I don't see those questions. So, Patty B. Hello, Jay. Glad to have you, Patty. Pamela Foster, it's been a minute. If you're the same one that I remember last time, I'm confused. What's happening right now with portability between Kansas and Los Angeles housing authorities? God, tell me you are not trying to take your lovely voucher out of Kansas and move into the depths of hell of LA. How many times have I spoke to you guys about Los Angeles and Orange County having a 200,000 person waiting list that if you signed up at birth, you would be about 99 before you would be able to get a voucher there. And then trying to port into somewhere where the rents or 10x, there's nothing left but crack houses. Even that is a terrible idea. The chances of you porting there and ended up sleeping on a rubber mat in a homeless shelter is at about 400%. Port anywhere you want except for California and New York right now. That is a terrible idea. So I don't know if that's what you're telling me, but that is a terrible idea. It is an absolute disaster over there. And let me tell you something. We all know about homelessness in New York. Let's take a look at the market in LA. It's 20x worse than New York. Okay, I never thought I'd see that day. It is. You port that voucher over there, what's going to end up happening is they're going to accept you're not able to find a place, and then that's it. Then you can live in a real hotel with drug addicts and prostitutes, and there ain't gonna be nothing left. So what I'm telling you is reconsider where you want to live. I don't have an objection to people moving to LA, but you guys need to wait till this pandemic is over, the housing crisis is over, and then the homeless crisis in LA. It is too intense there right now. I've had to move a lot of people from LA and port them to Vegas. Now Vegas is full. I've been sending people up to Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, Colorado now. I've been sending people by the busload over there. We're having to do migration around this country. It's intense in this country. All right, let me go back. See if I can catch up. Let's see. Cynthia Rose Johnson, been a minute. How are you doing, Cynthia? Intake was at Florida COC homeless, just passed 100 days. My phone, CBC, shut off. Updated COC email. Environmental ching in danger, must vacate immediately. How to move medical equipment. That's not something that I can discuss in this channel, Miss Cynthia Rose Johnson. You're going to want to send me an email about that. There are some things I'm unwilling to discuss in open chat, okay? Sometimes guys, you'll have to keep personal matters by email, okay? Because I cannot violate HIPAA law. All right, Sammy Joe says, you need to figure out how to make the cats your employees. Man, let me tell you something. That would be a hell of an office, wouldn't it? 22 cats, buzzing, popping like popcorn in and out my hair. I'm permanently scarred on my leg because I've got the big bobcat. Y'all know Big Pop. Y'all seen him. It's a very, very big male cat. He's like near 20 pounds or more. Every time he wants a treat early in the morning, he sinks his big claws in my leg down there. And it's like having a doctor with a scalpel. And so I've got about 60 different holes in my leg. And sometimes if you're not in the greatest mental state and he does that, you start thinking badly of the cat. There were days I had to question my own ethics with that cat because, so I have to come in, wrap my legs to keep him from clawing the shit out of me, but much less 20 of them. So, it'd be interesting if I could get all that help. Christy Phillips, 3 children. I will be homeless and on the streets. I have an appointment with somebody at SHRA, Sacramento Housing Authority, tomorrow to make sure that my Part A and B package. Okay. Well, with consideration of children, if you have that appointment, then likely they're already in consideration for a number of programs, both city, state, and federal. So though you may be facing imminent homelessness, it sounds like they're going to be able to probably back you up with a hotel voucher temporarily until they're able to place you with a voucher. I find it highly unlikely they're going to shove you and your children into the bushes, on the streets, or under the bridge because you do have children. I wish I could say more on that factor, but every city tends to deal with it differently. But if county services have picked this up, like you've suggested, and it's part of it in the housing authority, then they're likely going to make an offer to you, the RRH or PSH or something in that line. It's hard to say because I do keep track of thousands of counties, the best of my ability. George says, and 3 computer tables, they have ignored numerous doctor's letters saying I was already severely due to mobility and health. I cleaned up my kitchen. So this is inside your house. Okay. Well, I mean, if you cleaned up and you can pass HQS, which is a housing quality, your housing quality standard, then you're not in violation of anything. Okay. Look, you got to, the thing about this, George, is people try to talk to people in certain ways to lead them to believe things. Just like a lot of people didn't know they had rights in court to not be evicted. They just simply believed the shit out of the landlord's mouth. They were unapprised of their rights at the state, federal level, so they got spooked. You know what I'm saying? Don't let people spook you. That's not enough. That's not even a valid excuse. Yep, you have created a situation where it's probably not the most tidy, but that's hardly a violation of your HAP contract. And then anytime that there is a problem and violation, you have to be given an opportunity to adjust it. If they're going to continue to harass you, then you need to take the issue, step it up to your housing authority specialist, and ask what can be done there, okay? Scrolling down. I'm going to take a sip of this energy drink, guys, because y'all are hitting me hard today with questions. All right. Miranda Nelson says, wow, I'm surprised. There are some places worse than New York. Yeah, there are actually. New York's pretty, it's bad, but it's really bad in New York in certain parts, like the Bronx, Queens, and so on. I had a client called Puerto Rican lady called me today. And I'm saying that because that's what she called herself a lot. I'm a Puerto Rican lady. She was a fun lady to talk to, actually. But anyways, yeah, because there's a lot going on in New York, but LA is just out of control. It is, and every day that I have to take a call from a client in those areas, my first thought is a U-Haul and moving to the next state because it's just almost impossible. Moving on, Monette Jenkins says, is housing currently closed in Houston? Yes. So Houston would be Harris County. That's where I live, somewhat, and it is closed. But the thing about it is, Ms. Jenkins, you should be looking at Galveston County, Brazoria County, the Woodlands, and other areas surrounding that. A quick stop by the DMV can make you a resident in any county around here, and thus would allow you to be able to apply at any open housing authority. Houston's only opened up for a little bit about a year and a half ago. George says, I have 3 cats born on the grounds of the building. The manager demanded I rehome 1 cat. Well, they can't demand anything. They can pretend they can demand, but that's not your responsibility. I appreciate you doing that. Monette Jenkins, is it bad here in Idaho? I'm a voucher participant and I can't find anything in Boise that's affordable. My voucher's $881. Everything's $1,200 to $2,000. Good God, when did Boise, Idaho freak out? That's a gorgeous place compared to where I am because you actually have 4 seasons. I don't like the fact that y'all have a high drug prevalence for that city. I think that's the heroin capital. But I think that you should consider your voucher in other counties as well, not just Boise. A lot of times getting over the county line makes a huge difference in the cost of housing. And even if you have to give up the voucher or even port it, to another county, you might find a better success rate with that. Boise, Idaho has not been on my radar as a difficult state, but we've all seen what's played out in the last 6 months with landlord raising rents to astronomical rates where it's no longer people are having a very difficult time using these vouchers. They're overcompensating for all those people that couldn't pay their rent that had a job at one point. And a lot of them are trying to recover a lot of that. And unfortunately, it's playing out on the low income people pretty badly. Marco Alvin, what counties or states are easier to find apartments? So let's really talk about the United States and let's talk about housing authorities and what I believe, okay, my opinion, my combined opinion from what I do. So we're going to talk about what's bad and what's great and what you shouldn't be doing. So we'll start with California going down the West Coast. So, bad idea. Texas, great state. Not many problems there. You got 5 or 6 cities there. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and then possibly Georgia, but Georgia without DeKalb County, the metropolitan city. Florida's a nightmare. Anytime you get near Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all that stuff. To give you a good example, in Miami, they opened housing authority for just a couple of days. 1/4 of the entire population of the city of Miami applied. That means 90,000 to 400,000 people applied. It's unheard of. That's nearly 25%. And they only gave out 5,000 vouchers, which means you would have had the same odds as winning the national lotto. Okay. It was a complete fabulous joke. 5,000 vouchers, 90,000 applied. Beyond that, let's talk about going up some more. Now, I'm not suggesting the southern states are nice places to live. Look, the South is still the South, Just like we experience racism in the upper East Coast, New York and New Jersey, a lot of clients experience racism. There's a great possibility that if you're going to live in Mississippi, Alabama, places like that. So if you're not white or black and and you're a different color and you live in the States, you might experience that even in 2020. Thankfully, people are training their children to act more decently these days. So you have to use caution with some states. Okay, I'm not saying it's 1920, but there's a very real reality. Okay, beyond that, I want to say that the Midwest is ideal. Colorado, some of your upper northern states as well, South Dakota, North Dakota, places people typically probably wouldn't want to live. So I would say the Midwest is pretty good, and the upper Midwest. I would say avoid the upper East Coast, the lower West Coast, and then it's pickle when you deal with the South. And Florida's a convoluted mess. It's become so political in the state that everything just takes twice as long. But I'm not saying twice as long as LA, but I'm just gonna say Florida is a hot mess, man. Those people in that state can't figure out what's going on. Half the state is so old. What are they going to do when all those retirees die all at the same time? I don't know. The whole tax base is fixed to flip upside down in that state, and more people are trying to move to the beach over there while it falls apart. Look, guys, the next 10 years, what you see playing out in California is going to play out in Florida, and it's going to be the worst thing you've ever seen. That state is fixing. Everybody's laughing about the Democrats in California. Well, watch what happens with the Republicans in Florida because that state is heading that direction very quickly, and they have a very severe housing crisis, just like in California, and it's playing out right now. Anyway, so besides that idea, the Midwest would be my opinion. Also, Washington and Oregon, great, beautiful states, but again, a lot of you guys don't like rain. You don't like the cool weather. Y'all like the beaches and hot. So I'm going to recommend for a lot of you safe states would be also Oklahoma and Texas. All right. If you want to try parts of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, but I should warn you, the South and North Carolina, people tend to be, well, the incomes aren't so high there. So your money goes a long way. But however, some of the communities are just as poor as the state that I grew up in, Louisiana. You talk about dirt poor. So it's a big adjustment, some of those states. Guys, now y'all are starting to ask so many questions, it's not a possibility for me to keep up. So I'm going to scroll back a little bit, but I'm obviously going to miss a lot of you on this deal. So Miss Deborah says, yeah, he needs to get clips. I think she was talking about the comments earlier about my cat. Monette Jenkins says, everyone in Cali is fleeing Idahoans or pissed because they're leaving California for a reason. True. George says, have 3 cats born on the grounds of the building. Manager. Okay, I already read that one. Karen Harrison says, hello. Hello, Karen. I'm glad to have you in the channel. I'm going to skip a few names that have commented a lot and go to some newer people that have just jumped in, okay? Because I have to address people that are new in the channel, not just our normal people here that are asking a lot. So, Miranda Nelson, does the voucher amount change from state to state? Yes, it does. Believe it or not, if you get a voucher issued to state of California, New York, New Jersey, place like that, your voucher is worth more. You take that very money-loaded voucher and you go down south, and they'll more than gladly accept it. Now, if you grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, where the average income's $1 an hour, and then you try to port up to New York, they're going to laugh you out the building and probably turn down the porting process. So not all vouchers are created equally. In addition to that, there are different types of vouchers. So a voucher is a voucher. It's just simply a digital piece of paper these days. But the point is, it can have up to 138 strings attached to it. Those strings are attached to state, federal, and county funding. For instance, this one voucher is a blank, let's say, And so if you have a domestic violence victim, there would be BAWA funding here. If you were suffering from AIDS or HIV, then a string would be attached from that, and they would be called HAPA. If you were on this side of the voucher and the string was attached from funding, and let's say you had a disability, then you would be Section 811. If we flip that voucher over and it's attached another string, and you were a senior, but you weren't disabled, then you would be a NED, non-elderly, okay? And so we could go on hundreds of times with that for different fundings and vouchers. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, because I'm not going to get too deep into all of that. Pam Foster, she says, I have Addison's. Okay. So Pamela Foster, the things you're saying in the chat right there, a lot of those are already major qualifiers for disability. Now let's keep in mind, people, posing 7 different disabilities does not improve your position. You can only count disability one time, whether mental or physical. So you have to stack other issues. Are you a veteran? Are you over 55? Are you over 62? Do you receive Social Security? Are you extremely low income? Are you an American Indian? Are you African American? So there's a lot of different preferences to be built. Now, are you a resident of the state, a resident of the county? And so there's a lot of things you need to stack on top of that. Look, most people that are seeking housing are already disabled. So that's in a big pool of people going nowhere. Also, that same pool of people that are all disabled are also low income. That means that nobody's moving. That line's not moving. It's only when we stack additional things on top of being old and the disabled and other things that you start to actually climb the lines. That's the thing. A lot of people call me for cons. Oh, I'm disabled. I'm going to go get me a voucher tomorrow. No, you're not. You're just like everybody else that applied for the last year. Unless you can prove to me that you have other things going on, like possibly domestic violence and other issues we can stack on top of that, that's when you actually start to climb the line. And that way, when they consider you, they're saying, okay, well, you know what? She's homeless, but the problem is we're out of homeless funds. But wait a minute, she's got a domestic violence case, but we got lots of funds, but we haven't issued any voucher because nobody's really going through that. That's why we're going to give her a voucher today. You see now, so it works, and so it's more complex than that. But I think you start to understand that they could pull people at any point. This is not like grade school where you get in line for the little cafeteria and whoever's first is first. It does not work that way. It's based on preferential points, and those points are determined by how many preferences you have, and it's more or less a mathematical equation, and how they figure that stuff. So let's move on. Looking for some new names here. Pamela Ledford, hi, Jay. I need immediate help to navigate the system, Kentucky. Well, what I'm going to do is just give you a link to book an appointment with me if that's what you're looking to do. If not, that's just same thing there. You can find an email, just email them whatever it is. And if it's possible for me to help you in a general way, I will, but I can't get involved in heavy casework. So now if you book a consult, I'm happy to do that. It's just that I have thousands of people that would love my help, but I only have so much time in one day. I only book 5 people a day. That's it, 5 consults in an hour and a half period. And then I only do those appointments every other day. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, why doesn't this guy just do it 10 hours a day and make a shitload of money? I'm not interested. I take 5 cases. I skip a day, do it again, skip a day, go another day. Okay. So it's not about money for me. It's just simply that I'm trying to help. And I expect compensation for the tremendous amount of stuff that I'm trying to do for a lot of you guys, which in most cases, just getting you a voucher. Moving on. Kimberly Goad. I have a Section 8 in Baltimore. Okay, so Baltimore is a good city. Housing management, I don't want to renew my voucher in December. It's going to be cold. Well, no, look, Kimberly, don't be crazy. Renew the voucher. Let me give you some advice. Don't ever give up a voucher. People fight too hard to get those. What you want to do with that voucher is convert it over. If it's not HCB, convert it over, keep it, and then port it somewhere you want to live. Don't just give it up, because then you're going to start over again. Unless you're going to exit the low-income scene altogether and never need a voucher again, but don't give the damn thing up just because you're feeling like it. We can move you anywhere in this nation if you've got the right kind. So again, I would tell you, you need to get in contact with me, because you're fixing to make a terrible mistake. Maria Clay. What's the difference between affordable housing and low-income housing? Okay, I'm glad you asked that, because today we're going to give you a short lesson on housing. There are real names, and then there are invented names. Those invented names are just names people have thrown out their mouth over the years and over the decades and also unused. So let's take a look at the spider web. Here's HUD in DC. HUD pulls those strings down, and what do we have? We have HUD regional offices in several states, kind of like you have a mint, a U.S. mint in several states, all right? From there, federal funds flow down to every county, every state, and every county in the U.S. From there, that state receives those funds, and it opens up what you call a housing authority. A lot of you guys refer to the housing authority as HUD. Y'all refer to it as Section 8. It is none of that stuff. The housing authority is owned by the state or the county. It has county employees in it, and it receives federal funds from HUD. I'm getting to the answer, folks. Just hear me out. Now that we've established what HUD is, we know what the housing authority is, who owns it, who works at it. Now, where does it go from there? It goes down to what you were just talking about. Now, the housing authority's got several options. The housing authority, one, can issue you a housing choice voucher. God, and that's got a lot of names. They can call it a Section 8 voucher. They can just call it a voucher. They can call it all kinds of stuff. It is a housing choice voucher. The other option that the housing authority can offer you is what they call project-based housing. So what would be the difference between a housing choice voucher and project-based housing? Simple. When the housing authority owns the building in which you're going to rent, it's project-based housing. When the landlord owns the building, he's accepting a housing choice voucher, or he's turned his building into a subsidized property, which is also known as affordable housing, which is also known as a lich property. Okay. So now let's get in the arena of affordable housing, low income housing. You see how it keeps going, right? So private landlords own these buildings, and it can be called low-income housing, affordable housing, subsidy properties. It can be called a tenant-based voucher, but it cannot be called a project-based voucher. So I think about 4 different systems. So to be clear, that is what it is. Moving back up, and man, y'all are really throwing these questions in here. I'm in the weeds now. Let's see. Ms. Deborah says, I'm always looking at the median income of that area when I port. Yeah, you're right in thinking that, but don't let that be your only decision. You should also be considering your demographics besides area median income. And area median incomes are only effective against actual zip codes. So most AMIs are actually not that accurate. So you really want to do your homework on that. Sierra C. Smith, I have been on the waiting list for 1 year. The housing authority says to be on the waiting list for 3 years. Let's go back to that conversation about believing things that the housing authority says. If the housing authority decides, Ms. Smith, that it would prefer that you call less or to discourage, and they just simply tell you, hey, you know what? Welcome to the list. Here's your application. But look, you should just know, let me put this nugget in your brain so you'll sleep snug tonight. It'll be a 15-year wait. Look, don't ever believe anything the housing authority tells you. It's rarely what reality is. All right. So you're saying that they've said that it's a year. That's pretty reasonable. That's actually sound like they're probably being very honest. Now, I got to tell you, Ms. Smith, if your town or county has less than 100,000 people, then likely a 3-year wait would be appropriate. However, a 3-year wait is for somebody that gave all the worst absolute answer. It means you're just low income, you don't have any preferences, so they're going to consider you dead last to 3 years. If you have built-in preferences, disabilities, and other issues, then the more likely outcome of a town or a county under 100,000 would be around 8 months to a year wait. Okay. Or it would actually be less than that if you were doing consulting with me, because I definitely know what to say on those applications. I know how to change answers to give you a better outcome on these things, but it sounds like you're doing okay by yourself. So, Karen Harrison, hi Jay. I've been on the waiting list for a while. Live in Phoenix, Arizona. On Social Security 4 years, severe back issues, waiting list closest 2017. I'm homeless, willing to book an appointment. Arizona right now is flooded. They're at the maximum line on Arizona, okay? All of Arizona is having problems. About January, February, March, April is about when it started to fall apart for the state of Arizona. Now they have a housing crisis completely with not enough going on over there. So there's lots to talk about when it comes to that. And if you happen to be in the big metropolitan areas in the state of Arizona or in places like Maricopa, yeah, that's going to be a big problem, even if you're homeless. Kimberly Goad. So I'm going to scoot down to the bottom comments because there's way too many questions here and I can't answer them all. I'm on disability in Baltimore. Have to move in December. Landlord won't renew the voucher. I have the security deposit. Okay. Look, Kimberly, if they're not going to renew, what you need to do is you need to first look at least a minimum of 5 housing authorities, possibly up to 10, and see if any of them would be willing to absorb that voucher and allow you to move there. If you know things are already dead in the area that you live in, you may have to consider other counties right now. Because the last thing you want to do is burn up your 90 days after that happens. Plus, you have to give adequate notice to exit, even though the lease is ending. It's a bit of procedure, but it's part of your HOP contract. Sammy Joe says, I'm in Phoenix too. Man, I gotta, I feel bad for y'all. I mean, I'm not suggesting, Sammy, that it's going to be nuts out there in Arizona, but I got to tell you guys, that state is absorbed so much of California. That's why things are bad right now. I'm watching this now start to play out in Colorado. We're watching people migrate like birds down in big flocks all over the nation, just trying to find any state that'll take them that have cheaper rents. And right now, the last places on the map really are turning out to be Oklahoma and Texas. Texas can absorb quite a bit. We could probably absorb a good portion of the U.S. for about a year before things start to fall apart in our state. We have not been hit hard yet, but I see it coming. Prince George St. Anne. We had a lot of success with St. Anne, man, about a year ago. Some people were getting vouchers within a week over there. That's no longer the case. Prince George, you can forget about that. You can barely get them on the phone. Contra Costa County, population 1 million. That's bad. 1 million people in the county. If you got 1 million people, it means you got 20,000 homeless also competing for those vouchers and places to live. I don't know how well that's going to go. You may need to consider smaller counties. Look, anytime you can drive over the county line by 10 minutes and go to a population that's a fraction of that, your results are going to be so much different. I've watched people go to counties just outside of LA and have a lot of success. Not anymore, but you're talking about the difference of waiting decades to a couple of years. So, look, guys, a lot of you pre-pandemic, I would have suggested, okay, let's just make it work. Now, overheated market, rents are too high. Up to 40 million people being evicted. Another 8 million people lost their homes. We have more people looking for vouchers than in the entire Section 8 history of it existing, all in the same year. In addition to that, people have lost all their unemployment funds and everything else. There's a housing crisis. We got 5 different crises happening at the same time. We have a 400% spike in people wanting these vouchers. Now they got housing authorities handing out vouchers knowing there's nowhere for these people to rent. So it's like a joke. Oh, congratulations, you got a voucher. And then the people go out and find out there's not one open apartment. These are the most perilous times I've ever seen throughout the history of what I do. And I'm also watching people go into states they've never even lived in before just to get through this. So what I tell clients at this point, you need to be willing to do whatever it takes. Look, at some point, this will come to pass, probably another year. In the meantime, you're going to have to be a stranger in a strange land and do whatever you have to do. The other option is going to shelter. The problem is because the pandemic and all the newly freshly printed homeless shelters are at half capacity. Most of them are closed. So if you make the mistake, I ended up putting you or your family on the streets, you almost have no option to even stay in a shelter anymore. There's nothing left. A lot of the hotels are now full because of the tidal wave of people that have been put out on eviction. A lot of hotels no longer even have rooms to rent, or they've spiked the rent for that. These are not ordinary times, guys. A lot of you guys are taking chances. You're wanting to stay in the same little neighborhood you lived in all your life. Well, that bullshit's not going to work anymore. I'm being frank. You may have to pack up the wagon and just move somewhere different. And then you can come back. A lot of you guys, I can port you back to your cities at a later point. But right now, if there's nothing to get and you're going to waste months of your life twiddling your thumbs for something you know you're not going to get after good advice. Look, guys, y'all playing a dangerous game with your life. You're old, your children, you're disabled, all that. Look, you got to do whatever you got to do these days. This pandemic has turned the whole world upside down. In the U.S., it has created one of the worst housing crises we have ever known. Period. I mean, it's just the numbers are astronomical. To be frank with you, when you evict 40 million people, there aren't that many vouchers in the universe. I mean, we're talking about a demand that's exceeding 1,000%. There are not enough landlords, period. That means about 80% of these people are never going to be able to find housing. I am barely skating through to get my clients what they need. But those that don't have the luxury of knowing me, boy, I got to tell you, most of them just don't have a chance in hell. Best efforts simply aren't good enough anymore. I'm not suggesting any of you hire me. I'm just saying that the situation is very real out there. I don't want to discourage anybody, but as far as living where you want to live, that may not be an option anymore. Okay, it may not be options later next year. And I think you guys need to hear the truth, because if you're willing to sit there, have a nervous breakdown every night while you sleep or you can't sleep, and you're sitting there and you're unwilling to even leave your own zip code, then you're literally putting yourself under that bridge. Okay. A lot of, oh, well, you'd just be fucking, it'll be easy being homeless. No, it won't. You'll actually make it even harder. Once you reach the point of losing everything and you're actually out there and you've lost everything, it takes 1 month to destroy your life and become homeless and lose everything. From that 1 month getting there, it will take me about a year to drag your ass from under that bridge back out of it. 1 month to get there, about a year to get out of it. Sometimes up to 3 years. Do not leverage your life and your housing against being homeless. You cannot recover from that very quickly. You can get there very quickly, but you can't get out of it very easily. I've had to fight with seniors to get them that are basically dying in homeless shelters. It has taken me months battling to get them up and out of there. Do not make that mistake of letting it all go. That's not how reality works. Okay, so I'm just warning you guys. You have to do something before it gets too serious. If you don't know what you're doing and you're just rummaging through Google and all that, then you better get somebody that does know what they're doing. Otherwise, it's like an hourglass with sand pouring. When will your life get devastated? And a lot of people have already been devastated. All right, so we need to cheer it up, all right? Because nobody's here to hear a bunch of nonsense about how they're going to be under a bridge. But I deal with enough people to know that it's very real and it's happening every time. I've got people right on the edge, 10 minutes from being homeless. So, Andrea Riviera sent $4.99. I appreciate the donation. That will go towards the care, health, and enrichment of my cats. Y'all know I love cats, got a bunch of them. I rescue them like I do people. Okay. If it lives and it breathes and has a heartbeat, I do care. So unfortunately, I cannot love plants. I do water them, but they don't breathe as much. So cats are my deal. I would do dogs, but the problem with that is I don't think all the cats would enjoy the dogs. So I'll leave that to those that are dog lovers to rescue them. So I appreciate that. No, Miss Deborah, nobody's asking for $4.99. Miss Andrea Riviera donated $4.99. In case you didn't know this, guys, you're able to actually click the $ below the chat window. It allows you to donate $1 or $2 or $5. Look, I don't ever panhandle on my own channel. There's 3 things I don't do on this YouTube channel. I'm not like a lot of these idiots on YouTube. Can you please subscribe and mash every fucking button? Please subscribe. Please follow. They spend 15 minutes telling you how you can subscribe and push every button on their channel so they can annoy the shit out of you every week with alerts, right? I've never once asked y'all to do that. The second thing they do, we've got chat. Please donate. Please give money. Here's 4,000 links. I've got 19 charities that all lead to my bank account. I never ask people for money on here. So, Miss Riviera, I appreciate that. And by the way, yes, you can donate if you want to. Look, the chat window stuff is really for gamers, children that have gaming channels, and they get donations if they play their little games good. Some people figured out you can make donations on mine, but I'm not a gaming channel. My game is getting people housing, and I'm really good at it. So, I'm going to answer that question, Miss Riviera. I have turned in my disability Section 8 app. Should I get an appointment with you, or is it too late? No, it is not too late, Ms. Riviera. You can, in fact, book an appointment with me as soon as you want to. Let me give you a direct link for that. All right, Ms. Riviera, there is a link directly to my booking software where you can book me. I have lots of openings next week. I'd be happy to discuss your case in detail and do whatever I can to get your situation resolved. Okay. And again, thank you for the donation. Pamela Leaford, one last thing. Should I send you a extensive email explaining everything about? Now, look, guys, I love emails, and I know a lot of y'all are smart. You figure, hey, if I write 25,000 words in that email, that means I can get more out of that console. Look, now you know I'm not going to read a 2 hour email. Some people have done that. My award winner, she wrote close to 30,000 words. It was a small novel. You could scroll for 20 minutes, and we never reached the end. Now, I was expected to read all that on my personal time before the consult, so I would have spent 2 hours reading, highlighting, and figuring it out. So yes, some details. The thing is, just give me the meat of the situation, and try to keep things reasonable. Don't write 5 and 10,000 words. It actually crashed my software for booking one day because somebody put in close to 20,000. It's a note section. She put in about 20,000 words. It means this person sat there for about 4.5 hours, write the whole life story from birth to death almost, and it actually crashed the booking software. Okay. So please, I enjoy notes. That helps me summarize your case, but please don't get too extensive. I don't need to know about what's been going on with the cats and dogs in the yard and stuff like that. Just to the point. So yes, and it's all intended to be in fun and games, but truly do not send 10 and 20,000 words, because I got to tell you that's a little bit hair raising for me to have to read that. Pamela Foster says Housing Authority in LA, California is requesting me to make an appointment with a new physician in California. I have him fill out new forms. They provide reasonable accommodation that was already signed. Well, they can make you recertify those answers, because sometimes disabilities disappear. Sometimes they're healed, sometimes they change, and they are entitled, since they are the one administering those funds to you, Ms. Foster, they can get a recertification. Look, same process. You take the form to the doctor, he checks the box. If he checks the box, you get what you need. That'll be the end of it. Don't try to fight him on that, because it usually goes very badly. And considering that's LA, I would not give any shit to those people at Lacia, okay? LA, well, you know what I'm talking about, that housing. Them people over there are meticulous assholes that work at that organization. I've dealt with them through my own landlords, and they can be, the touch of God one day and then the devil on wheels the next. So I'm just, look, if they want you to go have a forum, that's fine, man. Just do it. Kimberly Goad, let's see, Baltimore. I need to make an appointment. Well, Ms. Good, I'd look forward. Look, guys, any of you that are struggling, you don't want to spend the next 4 or 5 months trying to figure out how to deal with Section 8, write preferential answers, how to multiple apply at 15, 20 housing authority to give the right set of answers to speed you up and shoot you a little bit higher on that list, trying to make decisions about Section 8, vouchers, and other things. You're using all that experience that I have, or you can wander around YouTube and Google, watch thousands of videos, and then take notes until your hair falls out. That's the thing. If you don't want to wait to find out whether or not you're going to get homeless on your own good advice, just book it. Look, most of you spend more money buying Starbucks, beer, and cigarettes than you're willing to actually spend on consulting to actually get your own housing. A lot of you have phones that are so expensive, but yet you're going to be put out your own house because you couldn't pay rent. Look, guys, you've got all your. I'm going to be very upfront. A lot of you got your priorities fucked up. You're spending money on stupid shit, but when it comes to protecting and defending the number one thing, which your housing, okay, not your vehicle, but where you live, you guys won't even spend $1 on that, despite having consistent results for me. And my success rate's about 93%. Some of you guys will not spend one thrifty nickel. You would rather sit out there with one flip flop. Not two, one flip flop, drag that sucker down the road and live under the bridge before you spend one crispy dollar asking anybody for help. And that's the downfall. A lot of you guys, you don't know when the hell you're actually getting good advice. I wouldn't have existed here on this channel so long, and my channel would be riddled with angry people. This is a scam. I never got nothing, but it's just counterintuitive, isn't it? Go look at all 200 videos. How many times has anybody commented in that channel, oh, well, this guy, he don't get anything done. It's all just a fabulous scam that YouTube's allowed to go on for a decade. Then Google, the reason they rank me #1 for Section 8 and consulting work on Google is because they thought that, hey, this guy's running a fabulous scam. No, it's because I produce results. That's the same reason that YouTube trusts my channel. It's the same reason that Google does. There's no invention behind it. Hell, even the reviews will tell you that. But the thing is, it's not about my reputation. What it's about is, guys, if you want to invest in saving yourself a lot of pain and heartache, that would be my suggestion. I don't really need to sell. I'm not here to sell anybody anything, but that would be my advice. If I knew that it cost a few dollars to get the situation taken care of, I'd just damn well do it rather than paying Netflix. Imagine that. Imagine if I could make the money at Netflix, So, but anyways, that speech is dead, isn't it? All right, Marco Alvin is absorbing versus billing. Let's talk about absorbing and billing. Everybody hears that terminology. It's kind of like a lot of things that you hear out there, like scientists when they invent these groovy little names. So let's imagine that we got two things here. We're going to pretend that y'all live in New York and you want to go to Orlando. So New York has its money, its money invested in this voucher. And you'd say, hey, you know what? I want that New York voucher with New York money, and I want the state of New York to pay for me to live in Florida. Okay? So you see the point where that goes? That is called billing. So you move to Florida with New York money, and so what happens is Florida has to bill the state of New York. Pretty shitty deal. New York don't want to do that. Why are we going to pay to have you in Florida? So the other option is absorbing. Okay, well, Sally's coming from New York, but she's not going to take her New York voucher and New York money. She's going to get the state of Florida to agree that she's qualified, and she will be absorbed in the system and issued a voucher on goodwill, which means state of Florida is going to issue a voucher because they know that you're already qualified as I guess, kind of like a grace. So in most cases, most states would prefer billing. But I think that absorbing is better because then you become part of that community and you're no longer billing to that state, okay? But either way will work. Blair, you got an interesting last name. 100%. Appreciate you. I am watching as a newbie. I have looked at your website. I am considering contacting you. I'm in Arkansas. Excellent state. A lot of pretty houses out there. Considering buying possibly one. Blair, if you decide that I meet the criteria, do your research, see if I'm really the man, see if the services match what you need. I've had a lot of experience with, I'm also a native of Louisiana, so I'm a Southerner. I know what goes on in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, across the board. So I'm familiar with the housing authorities and all out there. In fact, I have a landlord with about 70 units in Arkansas that I deal with. I'm not going to disclose which counties those are, but yep, if you need help, I'm definitely here to help you. I do not see, I really don't see Arkansas as being a problematic state that has a lot of housing crisis. There are some financial issues with the state, obviously, and some poverty, but I don't think we're going to have a big problem with that state, okay? Pamela Foster says, no functioning adrenals with other disabilities that process from can assure permanent situation. Well, that's Pamela, that I don't know the way you wrote that, not quite sure. It sounds like you have a number of disabilities. Ms. Deborah, Blair, I read between that last name, really. Okay, guys, look, we're at an hour and 8 minutes. I think that's enough. My voice is starting to strain, and I have consults tomorrow and a bunch of them. Okay, today was tough. I got under today to help answer. I realized I didn't get to everybody's answers. Should never be disappointed. But some of you were asking 4 or 5 questions back to back repeatedly, and it makes it hard because it causes this whole window. So I struggle with it. I can't always answer everybody's questions, especially when there are new people here that are not regular. A lot of you, this is kind of like this live chat's kind of like a bar room. A lot of y'all are regulars. Y'all come in, And y'all know it's happy hour. It's free time. Get the answers you need. But I have new people to come to the channel, and this is their first time, and I need to be able to answer their questions too. So I appreciate a lot of my regulars coming in. However, I also have to be able to answer for new people, because that is the point, is to help as many as possible. And so, anyways, we'll be having another live video Tuesday, probably around 5:15 Texas time, Central Standard Time. Some of you might call it Mountain Time. And we'll do it again more liberally, okay? Look, YouTube's terrible about notifications, so just remember around 5:15 Central Standard Time, Texas time, and you're likely to catch me live. And since I talk like the wind for an hour, it's unlikely you would have missed that. So I've enjoyed speaking with y'all, and I look forward to those of you that wish to book the consult, and hopefully we can give you the results you're looking for. And I wish you all a good night. All right.